So the first trailer for the John Wick spin-off movie Ballerina released a few weeks ago, and I watched it just out of curiosity. And there was one line in the trailer that I was pretty shocked and impressed by, and it was,
"You will always be weaker. You will always be smaller. You want to win? Improvise, adapt, cheat."
and I was a little stunned with this line, and I was wondering if anybody else was too, so I went to the comment section, and sure enough, other people were also impressed with this line, and they were saying things like, "This is how you write a good female action lead," and that Marvel should take note. Female action leads is something I've been thinking about lately and thinking of making a video about, and this line in this trailer was kind of a final motivator to go ahead and do it. I really love action movies, and I love it when they have a competent and believable female action lead or co-lead. And while there are lots of examples of really good female action leads, there are also lots of examples of really bad ones, and I feel like we're getting more and more bad examples rather than good lately. Today I want to go through what makes a female action lead believable. There are certain key elements that I think are necessary to make them a believable action star. And I also want to talk a bit about what makes them likable. The first key element I believe that is needed to make a believable female action lead is to establish differences between men and women. I've seen some people on the internet saying things like, to make a good female action lead, you just need to write a male character and then swap it out to be female at the last minute. And to that I say, boo! That would be a terrible way to write a female character because men and women are different. You cannot write them the same way. They are different both physically and also emotionally, and all the good male action stars that I can think of would not work if the characters were swapped out to be a woman, and vice versa. All the really good female action leads that I can think of would not work if you just replace them with a man. They're written differently, and it's better that way. It makes more sense that way. If you were to just write a male character and swap it out to be female, it's not believable. It's important to acknowledge these differences in these stories, and important to acknowledge how these differences can complement one another. These male and female action stars can play off of each other's strengths and work together with their differences. They don't need to clash, and they don't need to compete against one another. They can work together. I've mentioned this in another video. I love dynamic duos between male and female characters in action movies, such as Ant-Man and the Wasp and in Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. The writers and the world that they are created in acknowledge that there are differences between men and women. They don't just write them the same. Another really good example of a dynamic duo that I really love is Jake and Neytiri from the Avatar movies. And in the Avatar world, James Cameron does a really good job of showing that the men and the women are different. And while it doesn't need to be stated outright like it is in the Ballerina movie, the Ballerina trailer at least, it is built into the world of Avatar. We see that in the world building and in these characters that the men and the women are indeed different. The male Na'vi and the female Na'vi have different roles, but neither one is seen as lesser than the other. Neytiri's parents are both leaders of the Omaticaya clan, but they have different roles in their leadership. Her father is the overall leader of the clan, leading the people in their times of peace or their times of war. And her mother is the spiritual leader of the people. We see in the movies that the people look to her for spiritual and medical guidance and matters. And we see that the position gives her great influence in making decisions, such as what to do with Jake Sully when Neytiri brought him to her father. Both of these characters were well-respected leaders of their people, but their roles were significantly different. Beyond just these two characters, we see other ways that the differences between the men and the women are built into this world. While we see that the men and the women in the clan are both able to hunt, fight in the wars, and they all complete the same rites of passages, such as climbing the Hallelujah Mountain to get their banshees, we still see that the men and women are different and are treated differently. We see that physical difference between men and women are acknowledged in this world. Have you ever seen Neytiri fist fighting one-on-one with a male Na'vi? No, you would not see that. That would not make sense because she is physically smaller and weaker than the men. We see Jake do it because he's a man, so fighting other men makes sense. He is as big and strong as them and can take them down. Neytiri could not do that. If she decided she wanted to go fist fight a male Na'vi, she would be taken down. She can fight in other ways as seen throughout the movies, but she's not as physically strong as the male Na'vi. She's still able to fight against the humans in their wars, and the women are shown to be very fierce warriors, but they are not as strong as the men, and that is acknowledged, and that is good. And there are other good examples of subtly acknowledging the difference between men and women throughout the world we see in the movie. Edge of Tomorrow and Top Gun Maverick do this by including women into the mix of characters, but having them be the minority. This reflects the world that we live in, that men are the majority in these spaces. And there is a reason for that. Men are physically stronger and more of them enter into these spaces, like the Air Force. The ratio of women to men in the Air Force and other military divisions match what we see in Top Gun and Edge of Tomorrow. In 2022, the reported percentage of women in the Air Force was around 20%. And these movies perfectly reflect that reality. And it's not sexist to do that. In these movies, the women are shown to be really competent and capable and amazing characters. And the ratios were smart and showed that there were differences in men and women in these worlds. All of that is to say that if you don't establish that men and women are different, then you can't really show how their fighting styles are different and how women has to fight differently than a man. If you were to just write a female character to fight in the same way that a man does, it's not good. It doesn't make sense. It's not believable. Women are at a disadvantage when fighting men. We're weaker, we're smaller, and that should not just be ignored in these stories. That should be acknowledged and worked with. So now that we have established that there are differences between men and women, what exactly do we do with this difference? I believe that there are two different things that can be done here. The first thing you can do is try to level the playing field somehow. This is done by introducing something into the world that allows for women to be able to fight the men more easily. This does not eradicate their physical or emotional differences. It just allows the women an easier fighting chance. Second thing you can do with these differences is just keep the playing field uneven. Force the women to fight differently, which is my personal favorite. I love to see movies that keep these differences. They don't add in a superpower or technology that allows the playing field to be leveled out. They have to force the women to fight more strategically and fight differently when they go up against a man. So let's talk about this a little bit more. Leveling the playing field. This can be done by introducing something like superhuman abilities, such as the classic comic book superhero powers, or other powers as shown in Avatar: The Last Airbender. Other ways you can level the playing field could be introducing technology or advanced weaponry, such as the mech suits in Edge of Tomorrow. If women and men are able to kind of fight in more similar ways, it should be explained and shown how. It should be acknowledged that the physical differences between them still exist, but these new powers and technology just provide enhancements for both men and women that will level the playing field. If you don't want to introduce something like that in your story and you just want to keep the men and the women on different playing fields, I would suggest looking at examples such as Mulan, Neytiri, Ilsa Faust, to see how this is done well. Another good example of keeping the playing field uneven and forcing the women to fight differently is Black Widow, at least in the earlier movies. While Black Widow is in the superhero universe, she does not have any superpowers. She actually just fights all these bad guys with weapons, speed, and as much force as possible. Watching the movies with Black Widow, she's not just going up and fighting these guys, just fist fighting them one-on-one, because these guys are twice her size, and she has to fight them in a different way than how a man would go up and fight them. She has to use her whole body in the fight because she's physically not as strong as them. She has to adapt and fight differently. We see this with Ilsa Faust as well in the Mission Impossible movies. Ilsa is also smaller and weaker than her male opponents, and we see how she fights them differently than how Ethan Hunt fights them. Ilsa uses weapons and has to fight with her whole body to take these men down. She can't just go up and punch them and take them out. She has to fight differently than how a man would fight them. And Mulan is another great example of how to create a good female action lead. It is acknowledged in this film that she is not as strong as the other men, so she has to adapt and improvise. She's a brilliant strategist in the movie and uses her strategic ability to accomplish the challenges thrown her way. She cannot do what the men can do. She needs to accomplish their tasks differently. It was an amazing, inspiring part of her character that was tragically scrapped in the live-action version, where they just showed she was amazing because of magic. And that brings me to another important key element that is needed, which is training. Mulan did not actually need to do much training in the live-action version. She just had the power, had the ability, and was able to go out there and do what she needed to do. She needed a little pep talk, I guess, but she didn't actually need lots of intense training to hone in her skills and to really earn the power that she had. I think an important key element to writing a believable female action lead is to have the training required and show the training somehow to the audience. We as the audience want to see our characters struggle. We want to see them learn, grow, both physically and emotionally. We like seeing that there was hard work put into their training in order for them to be able to fight, in order for them to get to the point that they are in all these fight scenes. Some examples of these training scenes are Sarah Connor doing pull-ups, It's a small scene, but it showed enough and it taught us as the audience enough to know that this character has trained to get to the point where she's at. Another example is Neytiri. While we weren't specifically shown her training, we see that the Na'vi do train and she was brought up this way. That's built into the world. And we get to see that all that she had learned, she was able to teach Jake. With Rita Ratowski, we see her training grounds and we see what she does to prepare for battles. We also know that she had a significant amount to train with her alien ability. For Natasha, she's a smaller character in the earlier movies, and we did not exactly get to see her training, but it was implied that she received it in a lot of it. And of course, the training montage in Mulan. In all of these, it is either shown or implied that the characters had to go through much training in order to earn the skills and the powers that they had. The live-action Mulan acknowledges that there are differences between men and women, but it handled it in a much lamer way than the animated version. It perfectly showed that there is more needed to create a good female action lead than just introducing the differences and some magic to alleviate those differences. The problem with Mulan, the live action, was there was no training, no struggle that the character had to go through to become as good as she was. She was just shown to have this gift ever since she was a little girl, and as soon as she joined the war, she was just able to use that gift. She didn't have to train to earn it, she just had it. There are other bad examples, such as Rey, who had no difficulty learning her craft, which was the Force. Captain Marvel, her training was just all about her learning that she is enough or something, that she just needed to break free of whatever was holding her back and really take hold of her true potential. She didn't need to do any training, she just needed to realize that she was amazing and she had these great powers and she did not actually have to work hard to harness them or earn them. Another smaller example that really bugs me is that one girl from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She just gets the super soldier serum and just fights like crazy. She's able to take down Bucky, who was the Winter Soldier, and she just does that with ease. She does not have any training. She has the same serum that he had, and she just took him down. It's ridiculous. None of these characters convinced the audience that they received extensive training to competently wield the power that they had. They didn't earn it through hard work, they were just given it. And when women are just handed these powers and these abilities and are just automatically good at everything, it does not make for a believable female action lead. Another key element that is needed in order to make them more believable and also likable is to make them human. And what I mean by that is to make them feel like real people. An important thing to establish making them feel like real people is to establish why they fight. They have to have a good, selfless motivation to be fighting in these battles or these wars that they're in. For a believable action hero or heroine, the audience needs to believe in their motivation and their reasoning for fighting. It's hard to believe in or root for a character who has no real reason to fight. Fighting for the sake of fighting is not a believable motivation. Good female characters that had selfless motivations were Rita Ratowski. Her motivation was to save humanity from the alien threat. Sarah Connor. She wanted to save humanity from the apocalyptic future and protect her son. Mulan wanted to protect her father. Neytiri wanted to protect her people. Then you have other characters who have more selfish motivations, such as Echo. She just wanted to fight to become the queen pin and to gain power. Or you have characters that just feel really passive and you're not exactly sure what their motivations are because they don't really have one. Characters such as Captain Marvel or Rey. Both of these characters don't really seem to have much driving them or motivating them to do what they're doing. They're very passive in their stories. And again, to create a believable action lead, they have to have believable motivations. Another important thing to make them feel more human is to establish that this is not exactly who they want to be, this is who they have to be. In Terminator 2, we see that this is a very hard and tough version of Sarah Connor. And it's not who she wants to be, rather, it's who she needs to be. She needs to be strict, harsh, and firm in order to protect her son. We see that she is burdened greatly by the future that she knows of, and it makes her jaded and afraid. She experiences very human emotions from this. She has a dream of the horrifying future, and in her dream, we see that she wishes to have a normal life where she can take care of her son, take him to the park, and just be a normal mom. She does not want to be who she is now, where she feels the need to separate herself from her son in order to keep him safe. This is just who she has to be and what she has to do. And when Sarah Connor decides to go and kill the guy that creates Skynet, we see that she is indeed human and not some heartless machine. She strongly believed that she needed to do this in order to save the future of humanity, but she couldn't, and she broke down crying because she's human. That was a very stressful and intense situation that she felt like she needed to go through with, but she couldn't. She could not actually do it physically. She could not pull the trigger and kill this man, even though she was so close and believed that she needed to do this. This scene shows that she is different from other female action leads who just seem so heartless and cold, such as Galadriel in the Rings of Power, Echo, Captain Marvel. Sarah Connor is very much a normal human and feels human emotions, and we see that in her story. What they did with Sarah Connor was way more believable than if they just had her march in there, shoot the guy down, stone cold, and then march out. That's not normal. But that definitely would not seem out of character for other, more modern female characters. But it's just not relatable, and it's not good. These characters shouldn't want this life. They shouldn't want to be violent, and they shouldn't want to be so cold-hearted. They should not feel enjoyment in the battles that they fight in and the violence that they have to partake in. They should feel burdened by these things, and they should yearn for a different life, a better life, a more peaceful life. All the good female action leads that I can think of do not want the life that they're in. They are this person and they are in this situation because they feel that they need to do this. Rita wants a safe world. She does not enjoy the war. She signed up for it because she is a soldier and she wants to fight for a peaceful world. Mulan does not want to fight the Huns. She wants to do this to save her father. Ilsa wants to run away with Ethan to live a peaceful life. Sarah Connor does not want the life that she has. She wants a peaceful, normal life that she can enjoy with her son. However, Captain Marvel seems to not be affected with the battles that she was fighting in, but rather she seemed to enjoy it. The power pose that she showed after destroying her enemy's ships and everyone inside was just weird. I'm not saying that these bad guys did not necessarily deserve that, but it was weird that she showed so much pleasure and enjoyment in these violent actions. That's not human, that's psychotic. Fights should be difficult for a heroine, both physically and mentally. Okay, so let's recap real quick and go over the key elements needed to create a believable female action lead. Number 1, establish that they are different from the men. Number 2, you can level the playing field by introducing weapons or supernatural abilities. Or if you don't want to do that one, you can opt for number 3, which is to keep the playing field uneven and force the women to fight differently than the men. Number 4, training is required for this female character. 5, make these female characters human. Do this by giving them selfless purpose behind their desires to fight. This character should not want to fight, they should have to fight, and they should be burdened by this need to fight. This fight should also be very difficult for this female character, both physically and mentally. In conclusion, female characters can be great when they are done well, but there are certain aspects that need to be included in order to make them believable and also likable. It is not enough to just write a male character and then swap it out as a female character last minute. It's not enough to just make the women as strong as the men. It's not enough to just give them supernatural abilities that they do not have to earn or train to use. And it is not enough to just make them stoic, cold-hearted, and strong-willed. They should be believable both physically and emotionally. Make them physically and emotionally different from the men. Make them work hard and struggle for their power and their strength. Give them selfless purpose. Make them despise violence and have them yearn for a better life.